Greetings from the Tech Cave, Fenris here, and today we are taking a look at the PC Engine Duo RX. Now, this system was sent in by my friends over at My Life in Gaming, but instead of it being tried this time, rather, we got the big, bald, beautiful man himself, Corey C. Now, Corey had sent this system my way because he wanted to get it fully recapped, as well as an RGB and region mod installed. So let's not waste any time and get straight to disassembling this unit. So looking at the inside of the unit, it doesn't look really that much any different from a normal PC Engine Duo R. I mean, the layout might be a little different. It's been a while since I've taken apart one of those, and it doesn't seem that we have nearly as many caps on this board to replace as you would normally think. At least until you remove the disk drive, then suddenly, yeah, we got a nice cluster of capacitors underneath the disk drive as well. So we definitely got our work cut out for us, but that's okay. I'm always up for the challenge. So yeah. Let's just go ahead and unplug the disk drive and get this board fully unscrewed and prepped and ready for a recap. Alright, so now that we got the main board removed from the shell, we can now take a closer look. Now, as you can see, unlike the PC Engine Duo, the Turbo Duo, or even the Turbo Express for that matter, the Duo RX, as well as the Duo R, uses through-hole electrolytic capacitors as opposed to surface mount electrolytic capacitors, which is great because that means we don't have to worry about any of these capacitors prematurely venting just due to poor manufacturing of the time. So, all we really need to remove these is using the desolder gun. But that being said though, you can see that we have a ton of capacitors that we need to remove. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a capacitor list as well as a capacitor map, and I'm going to pull each of these capacitors out by their value and replace them with equal value capacitors. That way it's just a little easier for me to manage. So let me go ahead, grab a Sharpie and plug in my laptop, and let's get to zipping out some caps. Okay, so I've gone over the capacitor list for the main motherboard here, and I find that due to the fact that there's just so many capacitors, it would just be easier for me to just mark where each of the capacitors go. So as you can see here, I have a couple sticky notes here that lists the capacitor's value and which capacitor I specifically need to replace. So to get started, I think I'll start with the 22 microfarad capacitors, mainly because, well, that's the largest sheet of capacitors that I have at the moment. So I'm just going to go down this list here and mark each of the capacitors on the underside. That way I know where to hit with my soldering iron and my desoldering iron. So let's get to it. All right, so as you can see, we got all the 22 microfarad capacitors swapped out. And something I noticed is I was provided way more capacitors than I actually needed for this section of the board. So not sure what that's all about. Perhaps the Duo R uses more of the 22 microfarad capacitors, but the Duo RX doesn't seem to use nearly as many. So that aside, we got the 22 microfarad capacitors taken care of, so all we need to do is take care of the rest of them. Now, something I need to note real quick, and I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this in other videos too, but make sure you pay close attention as to the orientation in which you place the capacitor in. Now, in the case of like this Duo RX board, it clearly marks which side is positive and which side is negative. So pay close attention when installing the new caps, so that way you don't either A, take the chance of popping the new capacitor, or B, screw something up functionally speaking. So that aside, let's take care of the rest of the capacitors. Alright, so with that, we got all the big capacitors replaced with a fresh set of caps. And I'm sorry this is kind of taking a while. This is not a very quick process to change out all the capacitors in a system like this, but as long as it gets done, right? But in any case, with all the large capacitors changed out, we now need to move on to the smaller caps. And luckily, I already have all those separated out, so let's not waste any time and get straight ahead. Actually, really quick, before we move on to the small capacitors, I realized that I actually did forget a couple of capacitors. C135 and C612. These are 47 microfarad capacitors, so let's actually get those swapped out first. Alright, so now that we got those two capacitors swapped out, we can flip over the board, and now we can take care of the smaller ones. Alright, so there's only 2 more capacitors left in order to complete the recapping process, and that would be the 2 surface mount capacitors pertaining to the jail bar fix. Yes, unfortunately, much like the PC Engine and TurboGrafx-16, the Duo line of systems also suffer from the same fate. Luckily, much like those other revisions, they are just as simple as replacing 2 surface mount ceramic capacitors. And in the case of the Duo R and Duo RX, the 2 that we are going to be replacing is C903 and C909. So I'm just going to flux these up and swap them out. Alright, so the next step of the process is we're going to be testing the Duo RX to make sure it still works. Now, I have the case and the board put back together. I don't have any of the screws installed, but that's perfectly fine. I just needed this thing put back together well enough to where I could test it. So as you can see, I have my copy of Splatterhouse, and unfortunately I don't have a properly pressed PC Engine CDR game, so I am going to have to use my commentary disc for Kamen Rider Others, Kamen Rider Vulcan and Valkyrie that came with the stuff I picked up from Japan. Now, the reason why I'm using this disc instead of, like, say, a music disc is for copyright reasons. I'd rather this video not get flagged just because I want to listen to some Daft Punk. But anyways, so we're just gonna close these lids. And the first thing that's going to boot is the Splatterhouse hue card. So I have the Retro Tank set to composite, and we're not going to get stereo audio because I only have the mono cable that's used for my Neo Geo and my Genesis Model 1, but should work all the same. And there we go. Looks like we got Splatterhouse. Yep, so that works. Come down here, remove the hue card, and this should boot into Super CD-ROM mode. And it does. So we're gonna hit the run button. I can hear the disc spinning, and we're just gonna hit play. Oops. And it sounds like the CD part of the Duo RX does work. So we're just gonna turn this off. And now that we've confirmed that the Duo RX still works, we can now move on to the next step. And we will be taking a look at the next step in part 2. Yes, unfortunately, I do have to split the video in half because just the recapping process alone took a long time to do. And I did not want to delay this video any further from releasing just because I had 2 other mods that I needed to take care of. But with that being said, by the time that you're watching this, I'm either in the middle of editing part 2 or finalizing filming of part 2. So just keep an eye out for when that releases. But in the meantime, I thank you all so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. And as always, until the blue moon rises, I'll see you next time.